History is the culmination of things that have survived the ages. Think about this. Are we really trying to understand these things, or are we looking for something more? In Egypt, it is becoming increasingly more apparent and alarming that the destruction of the ancient things that have been taking place as long as we have existed here. When we look at the historical record, we are only classifying actual history as the things that are still present. The rest we are categorizing as mythology, and we are taught that a myth is not something to have actually occurred. Some of the great thinkers from antiquity have documented the demise of the wonders of this ancient period. In particular, Herodotus tells us that there were things in Egypt in his time that were of such gigantic proportions they are on a par with what we see today at Giza, yet there is no apparent sign of certain things as described by Herodotus. We are of course referring to the two pyramids with the Colossus statues at the pinnacle. Wait till you hear this. Easily dismissed, yes, but Herodotus was such a reliable source of information in his day that you would have to consider that if he was lying about something so massive and grand, then he would be ridiculed for it, because something as massive as a pyramid being in existence would be easily visible and easy to confirm or prove it wasn't there. There is an etching from the mid-1800s that seemingly confirms Herodotus' account, yet in the today and now, these things no longer are in existence, right? So what if we were to tell you that from an aerial vantage point, we can propose a possible visible location of the two lost pyramids? The location in question is named locally as the pedestal of Biamu, completely in ruins today and unacknowledged as a site with any major historical importance, yet this could in fact be the ancient location of something so impressive that Herodotus came here to document the ancient wonders. In the 13th century, Nabalsi saw the two colossi almost intact, one facing west, the other east, but relates that persistent rumors of hidden treasures had led to the removal of their tops. The colossi, however, were solid and yielding nothing but their dignity. Nabalsi also describes a pool near the colossi reputed to cure all ills, and into which, in faith of hope, the local population threw objects and money. In the 17th century, Father Vasilev saw part of one colossus, and by 1801, when Dr. Martin visited Biamu, the colossi had all but disappeared. In 1888, Professor Petrie removed a number of fragments and passed them on to the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, which now holds 47 pieces. The best preserved is the nose of one colossus, which is on display in the museum's Egyptian sculpture gallery. Other fragments were apparently left in sight by Petrie, but these have since disappeared, and now no trace of the colossi remains. Of course, like other ruined sites of Egypt, we are confronted with something in a ruined state. Yet, at the same time, we can link the ancient accounts to form a hypothesis that could prove the dismantling of these ancient things for much more sinister purposes. The ancient Lake Moeris would have been much more significant than we see today. All this area, including the Fayyam Oasis and the Wadi El Rayyan, these current bodies of water would have been part of the lost lake. In 2300 BC, the waterway from the Nile to the natural lake was widened and deepened to make a canal that is now known as Bar Yusuf. The canal fed into the lake and was meant to serve three purposes, that being to control the flooding of the Nile, regulate the water level of the Nile during dry season, and serve the surrounding area with irrigation. There is evidence of ancient Egyptian pharaohs of the 12th dynasty using the natural lake of Fayyam as a reservoir to store surplus of water for using during the dry period. At the lake, there are the remainders of the oldest known paved road in the world, the Lake Moeris Quarry Road, that helped transport basalt blocks from a quarry nearby to the lake, from where they could be shipped to the Gaza necropolis. The American Society of Civil Engineers has entered it into its list of historic civil engineering landmarks. The immense waterworks undertaken by the ancient Egyptian pharaohs of the 12th dynasty to transform the lake into a huge water reservoir gave the impression that the lake was an artificial excavation, as reported by geographers and travelers during classical times. The lake was eventually abandoned due to the nearest branch of the Nile shrinking from 230 BC onward. In the Middle Ages, maps were produced and they showed the two pyramids in the middle of a lake, a perfect location for an industrious machine, but for the purposes of this video, we are sticking with the hypothesized location in question. The Egyptus Antiqua Antwerp map, which was engraved in 1595 and printed in 1603, it reads that the pyramid location, Sepulchrum Moeris Regis, was translated as the tomb of King Moeris. By the 1800s, it seems the pyramids were being stripped, possibly for the masonry, and in many old Fayum maps, they are shown simply as the remains of two pyramids. Herodotus cuts a strange historical figure in the fact that historians are not citing him as a reliable source. This could be because his views on world knowledge are truths and not made to fit a social view of history. Hence, we are rehabilitating the great man's name as a logical and accurate writer of history. A history, remember, that was just as ancient to these people as it is to us. He records the dynastic Egyptian accounts that King Moeris constructed a gateway to the temple of Hephaestus and dug a large lake. In the lake, he built more than one pyramid. Not only is Herodotus eyewitness to these marvels, but he is also documenting these things from historical records that were available at the time. Diodorus Siculus mentions a king named Moeris who dug a lake of remarkable usefulness to provide a reservoir of water and guard against a poor inundation. He confirmed that the place was named Lake Moeris after the king. The location of pedestals for statues, or even labeled as pyramid remains, have been known through the ages. It's Biomu in the Fayum region, but in current days these have not been specifically identified as the pyramids of King Moeris as written by Diodorus, or as Herodotus, lost pyramids and tomb of King Moeris and his wife. Even more so, the site, which is the old island of Biomu, has been marked as a location of the actual tomb of King Moeris. Flinders Peachtree excavated there but did not find much besides some remains of said statues, some which are now in the British Museum. The site is heavily plundered and the pyramids completely destroyed. Yet our curiosity in this ancient things is bringing this piece of history back to life and back into the public domain. Besides a possible tomb, this site even makes a good possible location of the lost labyrinth of Egypt or a Ptah temple underground if this island was once the seat of a king, and puts it in the same category of importance of any ruling Egypt location like Thebes or Memphis, as it was the seat of a ruler. This definitely would be sufficient reason to investigate the site better. It has been assumed by previous accounts that the statues on pedestals at Biomu should be statues of Amenhotep III, just as we see with the Colossi of Memnon, and it has been assumed the statues of the Biomu pyramids are of Amenhotep III, as he did extensive irrigation work to Moeris Lake and even built pyramids at its edge at Hawara. The two pyramids in the lake which Herodotus describes were two colossal statues of Amenhotep III on pedestals about 6.4 meters high, and which survived into the Middle Ages, though by the 18th century only the pedestals remained. However, this is an assumption. Although historians identified the site as a site of pyramids with statues, they falsely identified these statues to be of Amenhotep III. Nowhere does Herodotus mention the pyramid statues on top of the Biomu pyramids to be of Amenhotep III. He speaks of the Colossi of Memnon in a separate passage, and therein lies the confusion. Historians have equated Moeris with Amenhotep III, and therefore it makes sense he would put his statue on top of the pyramids that marks his tomb. Amenhotep III and Moeris are not the same person, even though they both excavated lakes, made canals, dikes, and various waterworks, and did extensive irrigation work and rerouting of the Nile, so it could be easily to cross the two in confusion. Herodotus mentioned these late pyramids were much larger than we currently see at Biomu. He states regarding the pyramids that as much was above the water as underwater. Herodotus states the following: For in about the middle of the lake stand two pyramids that top the water, each about 50 fathoms, 300 feet, and each built as much again underwater, and on top of each there is a huge stone figure of a man sitting on a throne. So these pyramids are 100 fathoms, 600 feet, high, and these 100 fathoms are the equivalent of a 600-foot furlong, the fathom measuring 6 feet or 4 cubits. Strabo, Diodorus, and Pliny the Elder all mention Lake Moeris, and Strabo differs from others and Herodotus in one significant detail. He states that the lake was a natural formation. What happened to the ancient structures is currently unknown. You would have to surmise that from the time of the ancient Greeks entering Egypt, right up till the Middle Ages, these things were dismantled, and by the time Napoleon arrived, they were almost completely gone, and the etching from the 1800s is based on previous accounts of the two lost pyramids. We will leave it at that for the moment, guys. You can let us know what you are thinking on the topic, but just before we go, we wanted to mention that our channel is now fully enabled, and a huge thank you to everyone who has encouraged us to keep going during this process. 75 long days is how long this process took, and we are so pleased to be back in business. Nothing but positivity going forward. We would like to encourage you guys to subscribe to our backup channel, Light Up the Dark. We now aim to run both channels as main channels, so you can expect videos on both our channels every week. We are smiling again, guys, and we hope you can join us on our journey. Comments below, and as always, thank you for watching. Hey guys, this is BuzWeaver, the voice of the Lost History channel and Light Up the Dark. I wanted to also remind you guys that I have my own channel. I cover things like current events, headlines that are in the news, technology, gaming, reviews, and commentary. Your support to the Lost History channel and Light Up the Dark are such an encouraging factor for my channel, and I can tell you that both the Lost History channel and Light Up the Dark faced a lot of challenges these last couple of years. All across YouTube, we are faced with rapid changes that are taking place due to ideological changes, as well as competitive business practices among the social media giants. These are topics that I cover on my channel. In an effort to support our work, I'd kindly encourage you guys to consider subscribing to my channel, as your participation is greatly appreciated. And as the Lost History channel and Light Up the Dark suggest each time, most times, sometimes, we appreciate you guys watching.